NFL's greatest playoff comeback victories. What's the greatest comeback in NFL playoff history? Down 32 points with 1 quarter remaining, trailing 28-3 in the Super Bowl, facing a 28-point deficit in the third quarter.
At the Steelers defense, 2nd and 15. Quick pass on the slant, intercepted. Picked off by number 31, Mike Logan, still on his feet.
These weren't just deficits, these were death sentences, games that were over, victories that were guaranteed. Except they weren't. Here's the truth. These 10 playoff comebacks didn't just defy the odds, they rewrote what we thought was possible in football. This isn't just a ranking, this is the definitive list of the greatest comeback victories in NFL playoff history. At number 10, the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Cleveland Browns, 2002 AFC wildcard round, a 17-point road comeback that devastatingly crushed Cleveland's playoff dreams. The Browns dominated the first half at the Cleveland Browns Stadium, building a 24-7 halftime lead. Cleveland's defense suffocated Pittsburgh's offense, and the home crowd was electric, thinking their playoff drought would finally end. The Browns appeared headed for their first playoff victory since returning to the NFL in 1999. Quarterback Tim Couch and the Cleveland offense were controlling the game against their bitter division rivals. Then, Tommy Maddox replaced injured starter Cordell Stewart at quarterback for Pittsburgh in the second half. Maddox threw for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns, sparking the Steelers' rally. Pittsburgh outscored Cleveland 29-9 in the second half, with the defense forcing critical turnovers that fueled the comeback. The Steelers won 36-33, completing their 17-point comeback and silencing the Cleveland crowd. Pittsburgh's defense recorded 4 sacks and 2 interceptions in the comeback victory. The win sent the Steelers to the divisional round, though they would lose to Tennessee the following week. This game showed that playoff dreams can be shattered in minutes when a backup quarterback gets hot and the defense makes adjustments. But a 17-point comeback is just the beginning of what's possible in playoff football. Coming in at number 9, the Green Bay Packers versus the Dallas Cowboys, 2014 NFC Divisional Round, an 18-point comeback featuring the most controversial catch ruling in playoff history. Dallas dominated early at Lambeau Field, jumping out to a 21-3 lead midway through the second quarter. Cowboys running back DeMarco Murray and quarterback Tony Romo were shredding Green Bay's defense with a balanced attack. The Packers looked completely outmatched on their home field. Dallas was executing perfectly, and the Cowboys appeared headed to the NFC Championship game. Then, Aaron Rodgers took over. The Packers quarterback threw for 316 yards and 3 touchdowns, engineering one of his trademark comeback performances. Green Bay outscored Dallas 23-0 over a critical stretch to take a 26-21 lead in the fourth quarter. The momentum had completely shifted to the home team. With under 5 minutes remaining, Romo threw a deep pass to Dez Bryant that appeared to be a spectacular 31-yard catch at the Green Bay 1-yard line. Officials initially ruled it a catch, and Dallas appeared poised to score the go-ahead touchdown. But after review, officials overturned the call, saying Bryant didn't complete the process of making the catch as the ball came loose when he hit the ground. The controversial overturn gave the Packers the ball back, and they ran out the clock to win 26-21. This game became known for the Dez caught it debate that lasted years and eventually led to an NFL rule change clarifying what constitutes a catch. The 18-point comeback gave Green Bay a dramatic divisional round victory. Number 8, the Miami Dolphins versus the San Diego Chargers, 1982 AFC Divisional Round. A 24-point comeback known as the Epic in Miami was played in brutal heat. This game took place during the strike-shortened 1982 season in one of the hottest playoff conditions ever recorded. The temperature was 85 degrees with oppressive humidity at the Orange Bowl. San Diego jumped out to a 24-0 lead in the first half behind legendary quarterback Dan Fouts and running back Chuck Muncie. The Chargers were dominating both sides of the ball, and Miami looked completely outmatched. Then, backup quarterback Don Strock entered the game and changed everything. Strock replaced starter David Woodley and threw for 403 yards and 4 touchdowns, igniting one of the greatest rallies in playoff history. The Dolphins scored 24 unanswered points to tie the game at 24-24 heading into the fourth quarter. Tight end Jimmy Cefalo and running back Tony Nathan were making huge plays in the passing game. Miami took a 38-31 lead in the fourth quarter, but the Chargers' explosive offense refused to quit. San Diego tied the game at 38-38 on a touchdown pass from Fouts, forcing overtime. In overtime, Miami kicker Uwe von Schamann kicked a 34-yard field goal to complete the comeback and give the Dolphins a 41-38 victory after over 4 hours in brutal heat. This game remains one of the highest scoring playoff games in NFL history with 79 combined points. Players were cramping and exhausted by the end, making the comeback even more impressive. Number 7, Jeff Garcia and the San Francisco 49ers versus the New York Giants in the 2002 NFC wildcard round, a 24-point comeback with the most chaotic ending in playoff history. The Giants dominated early at Candlestick Park, building a commanding 38-14 lead late in the third quarter. New York quarterback Kerry Collins threw for 342 yards and 4 touchdowns, and the Giants appeared unstoppable. Running back Tiki Barber blew a kiss to the stunned Candlestick crowd after scoring to extend New York's 24-point lead. The game appeared completely over with the Giants cruising to an easy victory. Then, Jeff Garcia took control. The 49ers quarterback threw for 331 yards and 3 touchdowns while rushing for 60 yards and another score. Garcia was making throw after throw under pressure, refusing to let his team quit. San Francisco scored 25 unanswered points in the final 18 minutes of the game. Wide receiver Terrell Owens had a monster performance with 177 receiving yards and a touchdown to help fuel the rally. Garcia's 13-yard touchdown pass to Ty Streets with 1 minute remaining gave the 49ers a 39-38 lead. The comeback appeared complete, but the Giants still had one final chance. New York drove into field goal range for a potential game-winning 41-yard attempt. Long snapper Trey Junkin, who came out of retirement just days earlier to replace an injured player, botched the snap on the field goal attempt. The ball bounced on the ground, and holder Matt Allen tried to throw a desperation pass that fell incomplete. The chaotic final play sealed one of the greatest comebacks in NFL playoff history and one of the most devastating losses ever for New York. The 24-point comeback showed that no lead is safe until the final whistle sounds. The Giants' collapse and the botched snap became one of the most replayed moments in playoff history. Number 6, Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers versus the Detroit Lions 2023 NFC Championship game, the largest halftime comeback in conference championship history. The Lions dominated the first half at Levi's Stadium, building a commanding 24-7 halftime lead. Detroit rushed for 148 yards in the first half, the most San Francisco had allowed in any first half since Kyle Shanahan became head coach in 2017. The Lions had never appeared in a Super Bowl in franchise history, and just 30 minutes stood between them and their first championship game appearance. Teams leading by 17 or more points at halftime in conference championship games were 21-0 all time. Then, everything changed. San Francisco's defense made critical halftime adjustments and completely shut down Detroit's offense in the second half, holding them scoreless. The 49ers scored 27 unanswered points to seize complete control of the game. Brandon Ayuk's incredible 51-yard catch off a Lions defender's helmet set up his own touchdown reception that ignited the rally. Running back Christian McCaffrey rushed for over 130 total yards and scored 2 touchdowns. Quarterback Brock Purdy shook off a terrible first half to throw for 267 yards and a touchdown while also rushing for a playoff career-high 48 yards. The 49ers defense forced a critical fumble by running back Jahmyr Gibbs that was recovered by Tashawn Gibson, completely shifting momentum in San Francisco's favor. San Francisco won 34-31, becoming the first team ever to overcome a 17-point halftime deficit in an NFL Conference Championship game. The comeback tied for the third largest overall in Conference Championship history and sent the 49ers to Super Bowl 58. This historic championship game comeback showed San Francisco's championship pedigree and their ability to make adjustments when it mattered most. Number 5, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Houston Texans, 2019 AFC Divisional Round, a 24-point first-quarter comeback that launched Kansas City's dynasty. The Texans shocked everyone by building a 24-0 lead in the first quarter at Arrowhead Stadium. Houston scored on a blocked punt return for a touchdown, and quarterback Deshaun Watson was shredding Kansas City's defense. The Chiefs had never overcome a bigger deficit in franchise playoff history. The home crowd fell silent, and Kansas City looked completely outmatched against Houston's aggressive game plan. Then, Mahomes flipped the switch. The Chiefs scored 41 consecutive points in one of the most explosive rallies in playoff history, completely dominating every phase of the game. Mahomes threw for 321 yards and 5 touchdowns, with 3 of those scores coming in the second quarter alone. He tied a playoff record with 4 touchdown passes in a single quarter during the incredible explosion. Kansas City's defense completely shut down Watson and the Texans' offense after the first quarter. Houston managed just 7 points over the final 3 quarters as the Chiefs' defense locked in. The Chiefs won 51-31, with the final score not even reflecting how dominant Kansas City was after falling behind 24-0 early. Tight end Travis Kelce caught 3 touchdown passes, and running back Damian Williams added 2 more scores. This comeback showed Mahomes' ability to erase any deficit and launched the Chiefs toward their Super Bowl 54 championship over San Francisco 2 weeks later. Kansas City's modern dynasty had officially begun. The 24-point comeback tied for the 4th largest in playoff history, but our final 4 comebacks are the most legendary rallies in NFL history. Number 4. Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Los Angeles Chargers, 2022 AFC Wildcard Round, a 27-point comeback, the 3rd largest in playoff history. The Chargers dominated the first half at TIAA Bank Field, building a commanding 27-0 halftime lead. Los Angeles quarterback Justin Herbert threw for 228 yards and a touchdown, and the Chargers appeared to be cruising to an easy victory. Lawrence threw 4 interceptions in the first half. The Jaguars looked completely outmatched, and their playoff hopes appeared dead. This was Jacksonville's first playoff game in 5 years, and it was turning into an absolute disaster. Then Lawrence and the Jaguars stormed back in one of the most improbable rallies in playoff history. Jacksonville scored 31 unanswered points, with Lawrence throwing 4 touchdown passes in the comeback after throwing 4 interceptions. Lawrence finished 28 of 47 passing for 288 yards and 4 touchdowns after his disastrous first half. His resilience and mental toughness were on full display as he refused to let early mistakes define his playoff debut. Lawrence became the first quarterback in NFL history to throw 4 interceptions, followed by 4 touchdown passes in the same game. The statistical oddity perfectly captured the dramatic turnaround. With the game tied at 30-30, the Jaguars drove 61 yards in the final minutes to set up kicker Riley Patterson for a game-winning field goal attempt. Patterson drilled the 36-yard kick as time expired to complete the 27-point comeback and give Jacksonville a 31-30 victory. The Chargers' collapse was so devastating that chargering became a verb describing epic playoff meltdowns. Los Angeles ran for just 67 yards and 23 carries and couldn't put the Jaguars away when they had multiple chances. Lawrence said after the game that he didn't have a choice but to keep fighting because his teammates had sacrificed too much for him to be the reason they lost. Number 3. Andrew Luck and the Indianapolis Colts versus the Kansas City Chiefs, 2013 AFC Wildcard Round, a 28-point comeback, the 2nd largest in playoff history. The Chiefs dominated the first half at Lucas Oil Stadium, building a 31-10 halftime lead behind a spectacular performance from quarterback Alex Smith. Smith threw for 378 yards and 4 touchdowns, and the Chiefs appeared unstoppable. This was Andy Reid's first season coaching Kansas City, and a playoff victory seemed guaranteed. The Chiefs were cruising toward their first playoff win in 20 years. Things got worse for Indianapolis when Luck's first pass of the second half was intercepted and returned to the Colts' 18-yard line. Kansas City scored 3 plays later to take a 38-10 lead less than 2 minutes into the third quarter. The game appeared over. ESPN's win probability gave Kansas City over a 99% chance of victory, but Luck refused to quit. Indianapolis scored 35 points in the final 24 minutes, with Luck throwing for 443 yards and 4 touchdowns. The second-year quarterback was playing out of his mind, making throw after throw under pressure. The most bizarre play came when running back Donald Brown fumbled near the goal line. The ball bounced backward off a helmet, but Luck scooped it up and dove into the end zone to cut the deficit to 41-38. It was one of the weirdest touchdowns in playoff history. The Colts outscored Kansas City 21-3 in the third quarter and 14-3 in the fourth quarter. With 4:29 remaining, Luck threw a perfect 64-yard touchdown strike to wide receiver T.Y. Hilton, who finished with 13 catches for 224 yards. The touchdown gave Indianapolis its first and only lead of the game at 45-44. Kansas City had one final chance to win, but the Colts defense stopped them on 4th down to seal the 28-point comeback victory. This game continued Kansas City's 20-year playoff victory drought devastatingly and showcased Luck's elite talent. The 28-point comeback is the second largest in playoff history. Number 2. Tom Brady and the New England Patriots versus the Atlanta Falcons, Super Bowl 51, a 25-point comeback, the largest in Super Bowl history. The Falcons dominated the first 2.5 quarters at NRG Stadium in Houston, building a commanding 28-3 lead midway through the third quarter. Atlanta quarterback Matt Ryan threw for 284 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the Falcons looked unstoppable. The Patriots looked defeated. ESPN's win probability gave Atlanta a 99.8% chance of winning with 2:12 left in the third quarter. The game appeared over, and the Falcons were celebrating what they thought was their first championship. Then Brady engineered the greatest Super Bowl comeback ever. New England scored 25 unanswered points to tie the game at 28-28 and forced the first overtime in Super Bowl history. Brady completed 43 of 62 passes for 466 yards and 2 touchdowns, all Super Bowl records at the time. He was perfect when it mattered most, completing his final 10 passes and orchestrating 5 consecutive scoring drives. Running back James White scored 3 touchdowns, including the game winner in overtime. White's 14 receptions and 20 points scored were also Super Bowl records that showcased his dominance. The Patriots won the coin toss in overtime and drove 75 yards on the opening possession. White scored from 2 yards out to complete the comeback and give New England a 34-28 victory in the first overtime Super Bowl ever played. Deontay Hightower's strip sack of Matt Ryan in the fourth quarter was a crucial play that shifted momentum completely. Julian Edelman's incredible 23-yard catch off a deflection kept the game-tying drive alive and is one of the greatest catches in Super Bowl history. The Patriots offense ran 93 plays compared to Atlanta's 46, dominating time of possession 40 minutes and 31 seconds to 23 minutes 27 seconds. New England's defense made critical adjustments that completely shut down Atlanta's explosive offense. This comeback cemented Brady's legacy as the greatest quarterback ever and gave him his 5th Super Bowl championship and 4th Super Bowl MVP award. It's the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history and the most significant rally in NFL championship history. But even the greatest Super Bowl comeback isn't the largest by-point differential in playoff history. That honor belongs to one game that's simply known as the comeback. Number 1. Frank Reich and the Buffalo Bills versus the Houston Oilers, 1992 AFC wildcard round. The comeback, the largest playoff comeback in NFL history. This is number 1, a 32-point deficit, the largest ever overcome in postseason history. No comeback in 33 years has matched it. The Bills' starting quarterback Jim Kelly was injured in the final regular season game, forcing backup Frank Reich to start. Reich had engineered the greatest comeback in college football history at Maryland in 1984, but nothing prepared anyone for what was about to happen. The Oilers demolished Buffalo in the first half, building a dominant 28-3 halftime lead. Houston's offense was unstoppable, with quarterback Warren Moon throwing 4 touchdown passes in the first half alone. The Oilers extended their lead to 35-3 early in the third quarter, with just over 8 minutes remaining. The game appeared completely over. Buffalo's season was finished. A Houston radio announcer was immortalized on NFL films with the statement that became legendary. "The lights are on here at Rich Stadium. They've been on since this morning. You could pretty much turn them out on the Bills right now." Then, Reich engineered the most improbable comeback in NFL playoff history. Buffalo scored 35 unanswered points, with Reich throwing 4 touchdown passes, 3 of them to wide receiver Andre Reed. Reich finished 21 of 34 passing for 289 yards and 4 touchdowns in relief of Kelly. He was making throw after throw under pressure, refusing to let his team quit despite the overwhelming odds. The Bills tied the game at 38-38 with just seconds remaining in regulation, forcing overtime. Running back Kenneth Davis scored a 1-yard touchdown run, and Reich hit Don Beebe for a 38-yard touchdown pass to keep the comeback rolling. In overtime, Houston got the ball first, but Warren Moon threw an interception to Bills safety Nate Odoms at Buffalo's 20-yard line. Some replays showed that the intended target, Ernest Givens, may have been held on the play, but no flag was thrown. Kicker Steve Christie kicked a 32-yard field goal to complete the 32-point comeback and give Buffalo a 41-38 victory. Christie's kicking shoe from the game is now in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. The Bills' defense was the unsung hero of this comeback, recording 3 sacks and 2 interceptions in the second half and overtime. They completely shut down Moon and Houston's explosive offense after halftime. Buffalo advanced to play Pittsburgh the following week and won easily. With Kelly back as a starter, the Bills beat Miami in the AFC Championship and reached their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl. This comeback has been known simply as the comeback for over 30 years because of its legendary status. The 32-point deficit remains the largest ever overcome in postseason history. Houston sports radio hosts said in 2013 that this playoff collapse and others were among the reasons why the Oilers eventually relocated to Tennessee. The collapse was so devastating, it helped kill a franchise. In December 2022, the Minnesota Vikings set a new record for the largest comeback in regular season history, overcoming a 33-point deficit against Indianapolis. But the Bills' 32-point playoff comeback still stands as the greatest by-point differential in postseason history. This is the greatest playoff comeback ever. 32 points, a backup quarterback, the largest deficit ever overcome when it mattered most. The debate. The eternal debate. Is the Bills versus the Oilers greater than the Patriots versus the Falcons? Arguments for Bills at number 1. The comeback was 32 points versus 25 points, 7 points larger. It's the largest playoff comeback in history and has stood for over 30 years unmatched. It was done by a backup quarterback, not the greatest ever. The 32-point deficit has never been matched in any playoff game since. Arguments for Patriots at number 2. The stage was the Super Bowl versus a wildcard game. Tom Brady versus Frank Reich as quarterback. It was the first overtime Super Bowl ever. The 99.8% win probability overcome was unprecedented. It cemented Brady as the greatest of all time. This ranking puts the Bills versus the Oilers at number 1 because size matters when measuring pure comeback magnitude. The 32-point deficit is the gold standard that no playoff team has ever matched. But many analysts would flip the order and rank the Patriots versus the Falcons number 1 for its significance and legacy impact. The Super Bowl stage matters, and Brady's performance was perfection under the greatest pressure. There's no wrong answer. Both are legendary for different reasons. Both changed NFL history. Both prove that no lead is safe in playoff football. The Colts' 28-point comeback is the second largest playoff rally ever. Andrew Luck's performance was incredible. The Jaguars' 27-point comeback is the third largest. Trevor Lawrence's resilience after 4 interceptions was remarkable. The Chiefs' 24-point comeback launched Patrick Mahomes toward his first championship. The 49ers' comeback against the Lions was the largest halftime deficit in conference championship history. The 49ers' comeback against the Giants featured the most chaotic ending ever with the botched snap. The Dolphins' comeback in 1982 came in brutal heat and lasted over 4 hours. The Packers' comeback featured the controversial Dez Bryant catch ruling. The Steelers' comeback crushed Cleveland's playoff dreams. Each comeback has its unique history, its dramatic moments, its incredible plays. But the Bills' 32-point rally against Houston stands alone as the largest playoff comeback in history. These 10 playoff comebacks represent the pinnacle of championship football. They prove that games are never over, that elite quarterbacks can do the impossible, and that belief matters as much as talent. The Bills' 32-point comeback is the largest in playoff history and stands alone as the comeback. Frank Reich's heroics as a backup quarterback engineering the most improbable rally ever. The Patriots' 25-point Super Bowl comeback is the most significant for legacy and impact. Tom Brady's perfection on the biggest stage cemented his status as the greatest ever. Every comeback on this list is legendary in its own right, from Reich's heroics to Brady's masterpiece to Luck's brilliance to Lawrence's resilience. These games define playoff greatness. Debates about rankings will never end. Football fans will always argue about placement and significance. That's what makes these conversations great. But one thing is certain, these 10 games rewrote what we thought was possible in playoff football. They proved that no lead is safe, no deficit too large, and no game truly over. Thanks for watching this journey through the NFL's greatest playoff comebacks. Hit subscribe for more content celebrating football history. And remember, in the playoffs, it's not over until it's over. These 10 games prove that beyond any doubt. Never stop believing, never stop fighting. That's playoff football.